Hey everybody, what up? Scuffy here. And today, whatever time it is, the cicadas just stopped chirping on down outside, so it's getting a little bit audible. Daily missions have reset, and it is time to go over the results of my most recent poll that I did. Give you a little bit of background on it. If you weren't on Discord or you kind of missed it when I was throwing out the polls, I did it for about a week. With Prospero finally here, finally fully released as a set, what I wanted to do is kind of get some feedback and get some player opinions for those who collection for those who've been playing the game or just in general stepping into the game as a first time thing, whether that's a year ago or 6 months ago. I wanted to gauge people's opinions as far as what were their favorite 3 set 1 cards. Now, set 1 consists of, hang on here, so Sons of Horus, the World Eaters, the Emperor's Children, the Death Guard, and then the neutral cards of the Imperial, the Mechanicum, and Chaos, but not all of them. Specifically cards with that little watermark back there. If you notice, it's got that little crest as opposed to, I think that's a set 1 as well. There you go. So this has got the set 2, the Istvaan 5 expansion. You kind of see that with like little serpent and the eagle. If you go into the shop, this is really how you tell the difference right there. So that highlighted symbol versus set 2, set 3, set 4. Basically cards with that watermark, which again, those are the 4 starting legions as well as the neutral card with that. So, got a range of responses from people. Pretty good votes, pretty good amount of people put in. And the results were fairly close amongst the top 3. It was kind of tight there, and it kind of gauged. I think a lot of the people's responses were from based off of their preference for Legion. Number 1, number 2, there was a little bit of nostalgia thrown in there, and then just overall cards that have continued to hold up. I think because set 1, I mean, these cards, they've been around now for 4 expansions. Some of them have seen some severe nerfs. Some have seen improvements. Some have seen things come and go. Surprisingly, only 2 warlords were mentioned, and then that was it. I mean, there have been some good warlords, but I think just in general, a lot of the warlords from the first 4 sets don't hold up as well, or just aren't being plain popular currently. So number three popular set 1 card comes from the neutral card pool for the Imperial Army, and it is Jubok Starsight. And this should be really no surprise. It might be a surprise to some that he's not higher in the list, but again, we are just counting set 1 stuff. Jubok is always a good choice. I don't think at this point there's not too many decks that I don't include him in there. He's a target. He goes away very quickly, but usually if you can keep him around for a turn or 2, he's going to give you something that you're going to need. He's got the good stuff. He's got anywhere between, a legendary to a tactic that just works just right when you want it to. And he draws heat away from your warlord, which is important. So Jubok Starsight gets the number 3 spot. Just barely edging him out by 1 point. By 1 point in popular vote. Comes from the Death Guard, and it is Endurance. And Endurance is, if you're playing Death Guard, this card's a staple. This card is a 2 of. To this day. Initially, this card once cost 5. It now costs 6. For good measure. For good reason, too. It's a swing of 6. You're dealing 3 damage across your opponent's board, which most of the time you're going to wipe out your opponent's board. You're going to heal 3 to all your units. May or may not have troops on the board. It's at least going to your warlord. but the swing that it can do, the momentum that it can play, if you're playing against Death Guard, you know if they've got 6 energy coming up, that is always going to be a possibility. You don't want to overcommit, but Endurance makes those games go longer, keeps things around. There's nothing more satisfying than if you can keep your troops from first wave around long enough to attack with them and then prolong their life more with an Endurance on the next turn. It's just satisfying. It's more satisfying if you've got some beefier troops, to keep alive, but just the same, take what you can get. Endurance number 2. So, the number 1 most popular comes to us from the Sons of Horus card pool. And if you are familiar with the Sons of Horus card pool, you should be not surprised that it's Vengeful Spirit. Vengeful Spirit initially started out lower in the polls and gradually picked up steam. A lot of people voting for it. This card has not seen change. This card has remained the same since I started playing, which was in beta, I think only a month into it. As far as I can recall, deal 8 damage, draw a card for 8. It ends games. It's a closing card. It's a great icon. Lore-wise, as well as picture-wise, as well as damage-wise, this thing just does what it does. Ward, introduced in the Prospero expansion, specifically with the Space Wolves, can throw a curve in there with Oath or Weird Make, or if you can throw down Gunnarsson next to Leman Russ, or if Leman Russ goes into his Reckoning, and that can really put a cramp on closing the game with Vengeful Spirit. But by itself, it is still very solid. Surprisingly, Pride of the Emperor, which is very close in regards to this, to Vengeful Spirit, was much, much lower on the totem pole in terms of the votes. And I don't know if that's just preference. People have kind of turned away from the Emperor's Children, or because of the change-up that it received when it got the nerf back in May, I believe it was. This used to just go back to your hand, and now it returns to your deck. Arguably, it could be more powerful going back to your deck at -1 cost, but the ability to spam it twice in a turn with Tactical Brilliance or some other similar combo is no longer an option. So I think maybe that's why it just scores less with players. So your top 3: number 1 is Vengeful Spirit, number 2 is Endurance, number 3 is Jubok. Now, I've got a couple of honorable mentions. Melgator, Ambassador Melgator, is probably the top of the honorable mentions. He's lost a little bit of steam momentum in terms of how he operates, because he no longer works on demons or vehicles, and he doesn't work on Custodes troops. So he's lost some potency, but he still is very viable. He can still help contribute to the swing of games. He doesn't go in every deck, but he does go in quite a few decks just the same, and usually his presence is felt. And then coming up right next to him, tied in terms of votes, is Goldstone Hunters, which, again, they've lost a little bit. They used to have 3 health. They now have 2 health, which makes a big difference because they're no longer around as a body, but they are an instant, basically. They can get pumped with a tactic or a warlord ability, which could prolong their longevity. Also can do increased damage. There's nothing more fun as a Sons of Horus player, if you haven't yet made it to the point where you're using your Vengeful Spirit, that you drop a Goldstone and then you give them some Bane Strike rounds for 6 energy. You're doing 7 damage straight to your opponent's face with Goldstone Hunters. So that's an old school tactic, but there's stuff we could talk about, stuff that doesn't happen in the game anymore due to errata, with like the mechanic of the Alpha Thetas and the Mechindrites. We could go down that road, but we won't. And then kind of coming up at the far rear of the honorable mentions, a couple points down the road, Conqueror. Conqueror actually received a lot of 3rd level votes, just kind of mentioned by people, not enough to really rack up solid points, but the representation from the World Eaters was there. You could tell the people who favored favored Angron or Karn for that reason. Mostly Angron, I think, makes the most use out of it, or Erlen. Karn doesn't tend to get up to 8 energy that often, but destroying all troops of play is a very, very powerful effect. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the top picks for the Set 1 expansion, the Istvaan 3 expansion, as it were. Which, I think overall, I think the top 3 have not aged a day. I mean, Jubok, actually, believe it or not, if you haven't been playing the game too long, Jubok used to have 5 health. So he was much more annoying than he is now. Jubok received a minor change, but he's still very powerful. The Endurance received a minor change in terms of energy, making it a little bit more costly to do, but it's still very powerful. And Vengeful Spirit has always been powerful, hasn't been changed, and is still powerful to this day. So I think those have aged well. I think the runners-up have not suffered dramatically as either. I think these are just good cards in general. And if you're looking to start the game and looking where to see, you've got Jubok, Melgator, Goldstones are all neutral cards. That's 3 neutral cards, and then depending on what legion you're looking into, there's a relative card to go with it. Endurance, Vengeful Spirit, Conqueror, things that you want to save your gems for and purchase in the shop, or just make smart buys. And if you're looking to start a Set 1 collection, outside of your Loken starting deck, basically, let me go into the shop here. You can start just by picking up that set. That's where you're going to find those cards. That's where you would find those cards plus many more. So there, that's it. And then we got this Throne of Skulls thing going on here, the special offer. I'm not gonna hype it up. This is completely unrelated to the poll here. I like the artwork, don't get me wrong. I like the artwork for this alternate Karn. It looks a lot better. Some would argue that it does or it doesn't. I like the card back. Is cool. He's got the bear arms going on, which we see as he evolves into his Karn state down the road. He looks a lot less with the old school Heresy. Visions of Heresy armor that he's got traditionally, but that's a pricey cost. That's a pricey cost for an epic that you may or may not play. Are you playing Karn a lot? Are you playing Karn because you like to play Karn? Or are you playing Karn because he just makes games go faster? Or are you playing Karn because you love the World Eaters? Angron and Erlen do it better. And do it more consistently. I mean, ultimately, the random fact of Karn's attacking, deal 1 damage to random unit makes it hard. So to have a $20 deck in the shop, which is just going to come with alternate art, alternate voice lines, and a card back. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you're getting trying to find a good, you're getting an epic, you're getting another epic, you're getting a third epic. No Survivors is probably your good epic, and then you are getting a legendary here. So I mean, your $20 is really right there. Argus Brawn. If you don't have Argus Brawn, you could pick this up. I mean, I'm not picking it up because I've got everything, finally, God. But just in general, I would pass on this, and I would urge people to be cautious, unless, like I said, unless you're a diehard World Eaters or Karn person. As a new player to the game, you're probably better off paying $10, picking up Erlen, and picking up, not too different of a cards. I mean, I think you're getting 1 epic there, and a lot more rares that, whatever. But for $10 less, you're getting a Warlord that's better. And if you have both those Warlords, then you probably don't want to spend $20 at all. I don't know. It's a thing aimed at the completionists. But I believe the next alternate art that we're going to see is Night Haunter, Kurz. So people who don't have him yet, that'll be a great opportunity for people to pick him up. Anyways, I'm getting way off track here. Next up, as far as polls wise go, I'm going to continue the trend. I'm going to go into Istvaan 5. I'm going to give some people some time to think about it, mull it over, and then I'll probably do another poll here in a couple weeks just to kind of get that started, get people's gauging on the Istvaan 5 set and what are their favorite 3 cards. Which is this? I think that's going to be very interesting because we had some really good neutral cards come out of that set, but we also had the Salamanders, the Raven Guard, and the Iron Hands come out of that set. And you know, the Iron Hands aren't looked at very fondly. The Salamanders are probably not looked at so fondly as well, although they can be very good. And the Raven Guard have kind of suffered, but the Raven Guard were really top of the notch at the time when that set came out. So I'm really kind of curious to see what people's opinions are, what their favorites from that set are, whether they age well, whether that's from a standalone or has that changed through time. I mean, some of these cards have not suffered at all, just like the set 1 stuff. So very curious to see. That will be coming up here down the road. That'll be the next thing that we do as far as poll wise go. We've got some recruit videos to do. Finally, I've got all these juicy deck slots. Oh yes, it's done. I finally did it. I scrapped my Nassau deck. I put a Magnus deck in there. As you can tell, I am missing room to even do the Custodes. I would like a row. I would like a row of deck slots, maybe 2, to do for the 3 warlords that and there's going to be a 4th here. There's going to be a 4,000 Suns, so that's 1 right below Grieger, and then 3 for the Custodes, and then they're going to get a 4th, and then before you know it, that deck row is going to be filled up. So take Everguild, take the initiative, take the high initiative, and give us two deck rows. I'll pay 100 gems for a deck slot. At this point, I shouldn't have to. There should be a deck slot for every warlord. That just is the way it should be, whether you use them or not. And I make use of these guys. But as I was saying, I went through each of these decks, and these have all finally been updated with cards, or at least card decisions based off of the new Prospero expansion. So neutral cards have been added where applicable. Some fun things there. Some orbital combats added in. Some Voraxes factored in here. Some Mechanicum stuff and some interesting decks, especially these 2 buddies. Oh yeah. Oh, some hot action. Vincent, 6. You don't even know. You don't even know what that thing is doing right now. That's some hot stuff. That is some hot stuff. Phosis, Takar, he's got potential still. Don't shake it. Don't shake it. If you haven't checked out Skypoint's video he just put up a couple days ago, he's right on the money on that. Yeah. Who did I surprised somebody the other day, I think, with Nemetor. Yes, it was one of those games that just went right, and then you knew that they were probably hurting themselves because they lost to Nemetor. Hey, what's the secret? The secret is he's a tank. No, that's not the secret. Shh, there's a twinkle in my eye. Shh, I'm not gonna tell you right now. Next month. No, okay. Next month I'm not running Nemetor. Running Nemetor in ladder is no. Practice is where it makes fun at. Anyways, so that's all caught up, and I can finally get into my recruit level for Psyker. and psycho and precognition. So that's gonna be coming here. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. That's gonna be my next thing I do, and polls for Istvaan 5, and I'm busy. I got stuff going on, but I'm gonna make it happen. So, anyways, that's it. That's enough talking for me about things, and I hope you found the polls, the choices of the popular votes, either to your liking or to your surprise. And if you didn't vote, please get on Discord and vote next time, because that's where I do the polling at. And I give it through a week. I'm not very savvy with other poll sites, and I prefer to kind of keep the results, keep track of them my own way. But I get votes in. I got a lot of votes from people, and I enjoyed getting the responses and kind of seeing where they were thinking, seeing what some of the choices were. And I think a lot of the choices were based off of cards that are still very powerful today. There were some choices made with nostalgia as well factored in there, but I think the majority drive are just what are the great top 3 cards that were pretty good then and are still good now. And those are the ones that we've talked about today. So enjoy. And that's it for me, guys. And until next time, we'll go ahead and let you go and keep playing Legions.
And now it's time for Chewbacca Believe It. He's got the good stuff. One thing that the Custodes enjoy is extra cards. It allows them to get around those pesky sentinel abilities. And right here, I'm about to get an extra card or two. Now Erlen has made a terrible mistake in ignoring that Jubak. And now I've got the spear. I've got Conqueror, which may or may not pay off, but that's okay because I know that Jubak is going to continue to give me some good stuff and sweep in advance. Yeah, you know how that goes. Looks like he's finally caught on to it and gotten wise. But it's too little, too late, because Jubak's got the good stuff. He knows what you need. And he knew that I needed that sweep in advance. I didn't know it. Sure, I've got a Goldstone Hunter. Sure, I've got a Hunting Eagle. What could that sweep in advance possibly do? I don't know. But I'm very curious to find out. I don't think my opponent had any idea what was going on. But that's the great thing about this game. Sometimes you just don't know what you're getting into. Argus Braun doesn't stand a chance, and now, even though I don't have the ability to draw more cards with that Sentinel Troop on the table, just with what's in my hand, I've got enough to do all the damage that I could possibly want to do and lock the game away. And, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I'm going to do. It's gonna get nasty. It's gonna get freaky. Chewbacca, believe it, baby. That's such a stupid game. And that's why they call it Chewbacca, believe it.
Alright, that wraps it up for me. If you liked what you saw, feel free to like and subscribe. Add any comments below. And if you think the video might be useful or the series might be useful, feel free to share that with other players that you know as well. And we'll talk to you later.